Imagine a court that never holds a trial, never hears arguments, never explains itself, and still reshapes immigration, civil rights, and presidential power. That court exists. It's the Supreme Court Emergency Docket. And in this year 2025 year end report, Chief Justice John Roberts says everything is still firm and unshaken. Tonight, we are decoding what he didn't say and how the Supreme Court quietly gowns through the emergency powers. Roberts' report is supposed to be calm year-end letter about the court, but he's releasing it after a year where the court reportedly sided with the executive authorities on immigration, on transgender passport, and on the president's power to fire independent watchdogs. In this video, we will break down that report, unpacking the legal tools hiding inside it, and show how the court can shift the power without ever passing a law. Every New Year's Eve, the Chief Justice publishes a year-end report on the federal judiciary. Part history lessons, part status updates. In 2025, Roberts leaned on the labor scholars used for courts, counter-majoritarian. That means judges are supposed to follow the constitution even when the public or the president wants something else. But here's the twist. In 2025, many of the court's most important moves didn't happen in a big televised argument. They happened on what critics call the shadow docket, officially the interim docket. The stream of emergency orders and late night rulings that can instantly change policy. Once an emergency order goes into effect, you live under it immediately, even if the court later admits it got the law wrong. In 2 minutes, I'll show you why that same emergency docket protects president but almost never protects ordinary people. Look at the backdrop Robert doesn't spill out. This year, the court's conservative majority allowed President Trump to remove members of independent agencies like the National Labor Relations Board and the Consumer Product Safety Commission, despite laws meant to protect those positions from raw politics. There's a phrase legal scholars use for this moment: non-delegation anxiety. It's the fear that the Congress has delegated too much power to agencies, and the court is now slowly taking that power back, not by banning agencies, but by letting presidents control them through the power to fire. This is how power moves without elections, without new laws, and without new headlines. In a moment, I'll show you why the shift almost never happens in reverse. Why emergency power flows towards president, not away from them. On the interim docket, the justice lets the president remove members of the NLRB and CPSC, backend various immigration orders, and allowed a State Department policy that restricts gender markers on passports for transgender and non-binary people. By the end of 2025, the court's conservatives also looked ready to strike down the limits on firing the members of the Federal Trade Commission and even a Federal Reserve Governor. More watchdog Congress tried to shield. Roberts' team word is judicial independence. Judges decide cases faithfully and impartially, equally for rich and poor. That is the ideal, but in practical, the court has constantly sided with the executive authority this year, especially when the president uses emergency tools to test the limits of their power. And at the end, I'll explain why Roberts keep quoting 1776 pamphlets instead of defending the court's power today. Another tool in court's kit is the major question doctrine. It says that if an issue is economical or politically significant, agencies need crystal clear permission from the Congress or the court will shut their actions down. The catch: the court itself decides what counts as a major question. So, what does Robert actually talk about? This history lesson isn't neutral, it's strategic. He goes back to the basics. He celebrates Thomas Paine's Common Sense, a 250-year-old pamphlet that helped push the colonies towards independence. He walks through the Declaration of Independence and the long arc of amendments and civil rights cases, from the 13th Amendment ending slavery to the 19th Amendment giving women the vote to Brown v. Board and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This history lesson is real, but it hides a crucial modern concept: temporal power. Whoever controls timings controls outcomes. The interim docket lets the court decide now, while full challenges take years. By the time a full opinion arrives, an immigration rule, an agency purge, or a passport policy may already have reshaped people's lives. Roberts closes by quote President Calvin Coolidge in 1926, saying that amidst partisan chaos, the Americans can turn the Declaration and Constitution as firm and unshaken. He adds, "True then, true now." The most powerful court in the world doesn't need to explain itself. It just needs to act first. It's a smoothing line, but it sidesteps today's question. When the court uses the shadow docket, non-delegation anxiety, and the major questions doctrine to expand executive authority, whose reality is really firm and unshaken: the parchment or the people living under its rulings? If you want politics explain the way power actually works, through codes, emergency orders, and rules no one campaigns on, subscribe. Study World Politics isn't about left or right. It's about who decides, how fast, and behind which doors.